So I've been missing for a while, just some personal things. My family and I have been, you know, here and there and here, and I felt like I was finally ready to film another video. Hello BookTube Nation, I'm Sam, here again with A Bear and a Bee Books, and today I'm here to film my Jane Austen July TBR. One of my favorite reading events of the year is Jane Austen July. She is probably, after much contemplation for my own in real life book club, she's probably my favorite author. I've read most of her work. I have finished all but one of her main 6 novels, which is Mansfield Park, which I have tried and haven't finished, but I am aiming on doing that, spoiler. I've also read Lady Susan. I've read a spattering of her juvenilia. I've read some lovely retellings. I just love the whole feeling of Austen. I love that it's warm and cozy and safe, and yet there is so much underneath the surface level to dig into if you want to. Politics and social issues and the subject of marriage and what that means and feminism. It's just, yeah. So let's talk about the books I'm planning on reading this Jane Austen July. So first, there's no way that I'm gonna finish all these books, but I like to have options. So maybe a pile of possibilities. But also I think there are so many Austen books that I want to get to that I'm gonna run this through and do like an Austentatious or an Austenite August too. And yeah, so I'm just gonna keep right on going because there's so many I want to read. Also, I have a few more books on the way which may make their way into either my July or my August reading plans. One, I will give more information if I do end up reading it. It's a actually, I'll link it down below. It's called Harriet, and it's a retelling or reimagining, if you will, about Emma. And so I read Emma last year, and I'm really excited to check that out. Also, I have another nonfiction book coming about a friend of Jane Austen's, which looks really interesting. And oh, the new Gill Hornby book I have on its way. So those are also ones I'm really excited about. They're not here yet, and I did want to get this out because July is almost here. So let's talk about the readathon. So the hosts again this year will be Katie from Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and also Claudia from A Spinster's Library. I'm so glad that they're hosting again this year. It's just an absolute delight, and I look forward to it. So for the first challenge, of course, is to read one of Jane's main 6 novels. And the 2 that I will be attempting to tackle for that are Mansfield Park. This is my last unfinished novel by Jane Austen, and I really would love to finish this. You know, I've also read Lady Susan, so most of my Austen reading, unfortunately, is coming to a close for the first reading anyway. But yeah, I really would love to finish this. I was enjoying it when I was reading it. I just got distracted by other things. And then also, the first Jane Austen book I ever read was Persuasion. So it's been a while since I read this. Plus, I hear there's a new adaptation coming out. I also hear people are a little nervous about it, but that's okay. This one is about a young girl who goes to live with her much more wealthy relations and how that affects her and her upbringing and family. And this one is basically a second chance romance. It's about a actually one of Jane's oldest protagonists. She was previously engaged and the engagement was broken off. And then she runs into him again later in life, and we find out what happens. I love this. So the second prompt is to read something else by Jane Austen. I've read Lady Susan, I've read Sanditon, I've read some of her juvenilia. So I have a couple options for this one. I have, this is The Watsons, completed by Rose Servitova. And so this has, I believe, the chapters that Jane completed, and then it was completed by this other author. And I'm curious. I've heard really good things about this one, and I've never read the Watsons, so I want to see how this author completes it. I really enjoyed the Sanditon version I read like this a few years ago. I'll link that down below. I really loved it, and I would have loved to have seen how Jane would have finished it, because I just love books set by the sea. And but anyway, so this is one of my choices for that. I also picked up, I saw on someone's channel, I can't remember who, but I saw that they picked up this little beautiful book. It's The Prayers of Jane Austen, and I'm a Catholic, so I thought this would be something interesting to check out. It's just a beautiful little book too, and there are some beautiful illustrations, and yeah, so I'm excited to try this. And then last year I picked this up for myself. This is the Illustrated Letters of Jane Austen, selected and introduced by Penelope Hughes Hallett, and I just thought this was so beautiful. I had to add it to my collection. There are some beautiful pictures, and it just seems absolutely lovely, and I really want to get into this. The third prompt is to read a nonfiction, either about Jane or about her time, and for that I have 3 options here. So the first one I picked up was Growing Older with Jane Austen by Maggie Lane, and I had kind of a big birthday this year. So I thought, what an appropriate time to read this with my favorite author. So yeah, so I'm curious. It apparently goes into how aging, and I feel like it's got some mentions about spinsterhood, how that affects Jane Austen's books, how it affects her characters, how it affects her plots, what her thoughts were on it. So yeah, so I'm excited to try this. And then I also wanted just kind of a basic biography. I watched one recently on YouTube that was just a short kind of introduction to Jane and where she lived and her life. And I found it really interesting. If I can find it, I'll link it down below. It was just a short, quick, but I thought really insightful. So I thought, well, let's pick up a biography. And I tried reading the one that is so beloved by Lucy Worsley, I think last year, and it was too dense for me to get into with all the other reading that I wanted to do. So I thought this would be a good choice because it's short. This is Jane Austen, A Brief Life by Fiona Stafford. And I just wanted something short and sweet to give me kind of the nuts and bolts of her life. And I thought that this would be a good place to start. Then I also picked up Our Tempestuous Day, A History of Regency England by Carolee Erickson, author of Her Little Majesty. I just thought this fit the prompt, and I've read books by this author before, some of her fiction works, and I find them fun. And so I thought, well, let me give this a try. It's also not too long, so seemed like a good choice and something different that I could try. Okay, the next prompt is where most people go a little crazy. I have way too many books for this prompt, but it's so open now, and I love that. It can be either like a retelling of a Jane Austen, or a reimagining, a book where Jane Austen is a character, a historical fiction set in the time of Jane Austen, and I have way too many options, but I can help myself. One, of course, that I've been meaning to get to is The Other Bennet Sister. This is a novel by Janice Hadlow. Earlier this year, I read What Kitty Did Next, and I ended up really enjoying it, so I thought that this would pair really nicely with that. I've heard nothing but great things about this. Everybody loves this book. Everybody talks about this book. What is it? It's basically almost a continuation of Pride and Prejudice, but also a retelling, all about Mary Bennet. And of course, she is the quiet sister, and her story. I'm curious. Next is another one I picked up because I've read the author before, and this is The Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen by Syrie James. I don't know a whole lot about this book, but it was Austen and it was an author I've read before, so I wanted to check it out. It's not too long. It appears to be like if we found some more writing of Austen's and then it mentioned maybe a love affair and a little bit about her life, and we found out more about Austen, and it seems fun. I also have another retelling here. This is a life of her own, the story of Margaret Dashwood by Wendy Zomparelli. And I work on writing projects occasionally, and this is a book, not exactly, but I always wanted to tell Margaret Dashwood's story, because most people that aren't huge Janeites think Sense and Sensibility, it's about two sisters, which it is, but there's a third sister, and she gets forgotten a lot, and I always feel so bad for her. I just feel like she has so much spirit, and she could be such an interesting character study. So one day, maybe I will write my own version, but I found this, and it seems really interesting. It's all about her story and when she gets older and the loss of her father, and she wanted to travel and she wanted to see the world, and she had all these plans that she was going to do with her dad, and of course she doesn't get a chance to do that, and it just sounds great. So I really am hoping I love this. Then I also have Miss Austen by Gill Hornby, and I'm so excited for her new book. It sounds lovely. I mean, books about Austen and a governess, I don't think you can go wrong there. So I definitely want to get to this one soon. The other one is on its way, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, this is basically telling the story of Cassandra Austen as she ages, and then looking back through her life and her relationship with Jane, and the missing letters, and maybe a little bit more insight into that we all wish we knew. I've been meaning forever. You know how there's those authors that you really want to read and for some reason you just never get to? Well, Georgette is one of those for me. I've been meaning to read her forever, and I just haven't gotten to it. But this is Cotillion, and this is one that I have on my shelves. I think I have 3 of hers on my shelf so far. If you've read her, let me know what your favorite is. I know she has tons. But yeah, this one, I think I read like a couple of paragraphs online and it sounded interesting. You know, it's your typical Regency romance about a girl, and she's about to inherit and she's looking for love. It looks fun, and I've been meaning to try this author forever. Then I know Katie at Books and Things has recommended this, and I was kind of on the fence about it, and then I heard her recommendation and I thought, I'm just gonna pick that up. So this is Reputation by Lex Croucher, and it's just kind of a new Regency romp, and it's supposed to be funny. You know, it's all about love and romance and reputation, and it just looks like a lot of fun. And what Austenite wouldn't want to check that out? And with the new edition of the historical prompt, of course, Reputation now fits too, and so does this. I love this author. I've read 2 of her books before, and I enjoyed both of them, but it's been years since I've read her, and that's Tracy Chevalier. This is Remarkable Creatures. This one sounds right up my alley. It's about people collecting fossils, and when I was a kid, I was obsessed with fossils and that type of thing, like most children are, but it just sounds really lovely. It's set during the time of Austen's life, so it's one I've been meaning to get to. Okay, and the final reading prompt is to read a book written by one of Austen's contemporaries, so somebody that was living and writing during the time of Austen. Of course, you can go over or under by a little bit, and for one of those is, I know, I've read so many classics, but I never read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I bought this beautiful edition for my birthday this year, and I thought, what better time to read it than to read it with Austen? So yeah, so Frankenstein, I hear that it's not what you think it's about, but I think it's about a doctor, and he tries to create life, and I find that really interesting as a Christian, because like the implications of humanity controlling something that is usually reserved for divinity, and I think it could get really interesting. So yeah, so that's Frankenstein. And then I also have Marriage by Susan Ferrier. I believe this is an Irish classic that is in the vein of Austen, about young women and marriage and their futures, and I think there's a mother who is trying to arrange that. Sounds very similar. So yeah, I think that Austen may have gotten some inspiration from this, so I'm interested to check it out. I know a lot of people with this prompt sometimes struggle, but I've actually had a lot of luck myself. I tend to really enjoy books written in this time period, and so I'm excited to maybe find a new favorite. This is another one I've been meaning to get to. This is Belinda by Maria Edgeworth, and I read a couple paragraphs, give or take a little bit, before I picked it up, and it just seemed like my sort of thing. I liked the way that the writing voice sounded. You know, I have to say that I don't really know what this one is about, but I liked the feel of the writing and the voice of the writer, and so I'm intrigued to pick it up. Plus, I think she was one of Austen's favorite novelists, if I'm not wrong. So if that wasn't enough to be getting on with, those are all the books that I have on my TBR pile of possibilities for Jane Austen July, that I will continue into August, because why not? Yeah, I'm feeling all things Austen. There are also 2 watching challenges. I, knowing myself, will probably rewatch something I've already seen. Maybe I will look for something new, but for the first one is like a traditional adaptation, so an adaptation that was set like in the time that the book was written, that follows the story. And for that, I probably will maybe watch the Emma again. I believe it was the 2020 Emma. Put some over here. Yeah, my husband and I both like that one. I think it's hilarious. I don't know, like there's one scene that's a little too far for me, but I think it really gets Austen's humor, and it's fun. I love it. I may try to watch the new Persuasion, the Netflix adaptation. We'll see how that goes. And the Emma Thompson, Sense and Sensibility. I love that movie. I know it's not perfect, but it's my absolute favorite. I love that movie. Whenever I'm having one of those, like, life is looking like it's not what I want it to be days, that is one of my go-tos. I love that movie. Now, in fairness, out of the 5 plus novella plus extra stuff I've read of Austen, Sense and Sensibility is my favorite. I know it's not a lot of people's, but it is mine. I just love the bond between the 2 older sisters. I love the relationship with the younger sister and their mother, and the family unit and how they stick together when circumstances are less than desirable. I love the strength of one of the sisters. I love the passion of another. And I just think it's a beautiful representation of what family can do to get you through difficult situations. So the final challenge is to watch a modern adaptation of a Jane Austen film. I love, one of my favorite movies is Austenland. Talk about funny. Like, if I need to laugh, I put that on. That movie is ridiculous, but exactly what I need it to be. So, and I really like a lot of the actors in that. It's so good. And then I also really enjoy Lost in Austen, which is really long. I think it was made as a miniseries originally, but it's also one of my comfort reads. If I'm sick, odds are that's going to be on the television. So yeah, so I may search out some new things, but those are some of my definite go-tos that I love. Let me know what's your favorite Austen adaptation down below. And yeah, that is my Jane Austen July TBR. I hope you're as excited as I am. June is my birthday month, so I always go a little crazy for Jane Austen July because, you know, I have some birthday money burning a hole in my pocket and I have to get all the new Austen books. So yeah, so I have quite a few new things here to check out and I'm just so excited. And I hope that you'll be able to join us. I will link the hosts and all the information down below. And yeah, happy Jane Austen July. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.